When you're standing in the garage or a small workshop, staring at a pile of scrap wood, a sheet of acrylic, or a piece of aluminum, the temptation to buy a big-ticket CNC machine can feel like a gamble. The fear is real. You might spend a few $100s on a setup that never quite cuts the way you expect, or you end up with a machine that looks great on paper but takes forever to learn. I'm going to walk through the Genmitsu 4040 Pro Max paired with the CFL5533 laser module, so you can see whether the promise of a next-generation router actually lines up with everyday use, and whether the price point makes sense for you. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. First, let's talk about what this machine tries to be. It's marketed as a hybrid CNC router, laser cutter, and trimmer all in 140,040,078mm work envelope. The idea is you can switch from carving a wooden nameplate to etching a logo on acrylic without swapping out the whole rig. For a hobbyist who likes to dabble across materials, that flexibility is attractive. But flexibility also brings compromises. The linear rail-driven axes give smoother motion than a typical belt drive, which is a real plus when you need tight corners on a wooden puzzle piece. The integrated dust plate does a decent job of catching chips, meaning you don't have to constantly stop to vacuum the workspace. Those are the nice-to-have things that often get lost in a spec sheet. Now, who will actually benefit from this blend? If you're a maker who spends most of your time with medium-density fiberboard, hobby-grade acrylic, or thin aluminum sheets, and you already have a basic understanding of GRBL control, this machine can become a central tool. I've seen people set it up in a spare desk drawer, plug it into a laptop, and run small production runs of keychains, signage, and even simple circuit board prototypes. The laser module, at 5,000 milliwatts, is strong enough to cut thin acrylic, up to about 3 mm, and engrave darker materials like hardwood. The 710W trimmer, meanwhile, adds the ability to finish edges without a separate benchtop tool, which saves space in a cramped shop. On the flip side, if you're a professional fabricator who needs to mill thick hardwood, cut 10 mm aluminum, or run large format jobs, the 400 mm square bed will feel restrictive fast. The machine's maximum Z travel of 78 mm limits the depth you can carve, and while the linear rails improve precision, they're still paired with a relatively modest spindle power compared to industrial routers. For those users, the value proposition shifts away from high production efficiency toward convenient hobby flexibility, and that's an important distinction before you click Add to Cart. Let's dig into the day-to-day setup. Out of the box, you get the frame, the linear rails, the controller board pre-flashed with GRBL, the 4040 Pro Max CNC kit, the laser head, and a decent power supply. You'll need to assemble the frame and mount the rails. This isn't a plug-and-play box, but the instructions are clear and the hardware is well toleranced, so you can have the machine operational within a couple of evenings. One practical tip I've heard from community forums is to double-check the rail alignment before tightening the final bolts. A few millimeters of skew can translate into visible ghosting on a laser cut. Once it's assembled, you'll connect it to a laptop running a standard CAD/CAM workflow Fusion 360 for toolpaths, laser GRBL, or Lightburn for laser jobs. The machine's USB interface is reliable, and the GRBL firmware gives you granular control over feed rates and spindle speed. In real use, the router handles 2 mm wood cuts in under a minute, which is faster than many hobby-level routers I've tried. The laser, when set to the appropriate power and speed, can etch a detailed logo on a 2 mm acrylic sheet in about 30 seconds. Those numbers illustrate the high production efficiency claim. You can finish small batches quickly, without needing a separate laser cutter. But there are trade-offs that become apparent after the first few projects. The dust plate, while integrated, isn't sealed, so fine particles can escape into the room if you're not using a local extraction fan. That means you'll still want a small shop vac or a DIY filtration box if you're cutting MDF or plywood, which can generate a lot of fine dust. The laser module's safety feature an interlock that cuts power when the cover is opened works as advertised, but the housing isn't as robust as a dedicated laser cutter's enclosure. If you have kids or pets nearby, you'll need to add your own protective barrier. Another practical weakness is the software learning curve. GRBL is powerful, but it assumes you understand code basics. Newcomers often spend the first few sessions tweaking feed rates or dealing with ghost moves caused by the acceleration settings. The community around Genmitsu is active, and there are plenty of tutorials, but the time investment can be a hidden cost. If you're looking for a truly set-it-and-forget-it experience, you might be better off with a